Believe it or not, there are fish in this aquarium and this aquarium. And the water, especially in the bottom one, is solid black. It's awful, and I don't know how fish can be surviving in it, but I'm going to try to save those fish. I don't even know exactly what kind of fish are in there. So, to catch you up on the story real quick, I'm building out this big fish room, and I'm constantly searching Marketplace for well-priced aquariums that fit different spaces out here. And I found this setup right here. I had exactly enough room, width-wise and lengthwise, for a 55 or a 75 gallon, and I found this combo, which was a dual 55 on one stand. And it was well priced for 2 aquariums with the stands, and it said it came with lights and filters and everything you need. And one little line at the bottom says includes a couple fish, and it said catfish and eel. And I didn't give that part of it too much thought, but when I arrived to pick them up, the tanks were black water and just smell awful. And I drove a long way to get them, and I committed my mind to the purchase, but there was just a little bit of water in them, and that water was pitch black, much worse than it looks right now. And they had drained the water down low enough that you could move the aquarium, but left the fish in it. And what had happened is, they had these aquariums set up, they were taking care of them, and then they just got busy or stopped caring or whatever the case may be and quit taking care of them. The aquariums got really gross, covered in algae, just bad all the way around. And a lot of the fish died, but the fish that didn't die were still in here. And I felt awful about it, but I was already there. I said the least I can do is take these home and try to save them. So what I did, these were almost empty. I brought them home the way they were. We just carried them out, set them back up, and then I filled the aquarium up with, dechlorinated water that was at least fresh and clean, and I still can't see in there to see what kind of fish. I've seen one molly. I've seen a loach, looks like a coolie loach in here, and the lower aquarium is just so black I can't really see anything. It looks like they have black substrate, which doesn't help. And she told me one of them had dirt in it with no cap, which is a big mistake. The other aquarium, I can see a catfish right here, but he's kind of turned sideways. And so I think we might lose that catfish. The first thing I need to do is get these fish out of here so that I can clean the tanks. So I've got little containers I can set up water in and get these fish moved in if I could see them. So I'm going to get some light above the tanks. I'll probably drain out half of this water, pump in some more clean water to clarify it, get all the decor out. I've already got rocks and driftwood and stuff in some buckets. If I can get this cleared up enough I can see it, then I'll get all the fish out, then I'll start cleaning the tank. Looking at it, I think one of them at least might have an under gravel filter that I don't want. There's going to be a lot of cleanup work, so I'm going to get started on that, then I'll update you as we go along and as I find out what fish are in here. So I'm making some progress. I've got this tank cleared up. I kept putting fresh water in and draining out the dirty water until I could see it. And then I pulled out the fish. There's all the decorations out of both aquariums. You got live plants and rocks and driftwood and fake wood. And the only fish in there was 2 mollies. One tiny, one small one, and then one that's just a baby. And then there is a coolie loach in there. That's the only fish that were in this tank. Now, it's got a bunch of scratches on it, but not so much on the back. So I'm going to turn this around and make this the back, because I always paint the back of my aquariums anyway. It does have an under gravel filter with this black sand that I think they said had dirt mixed with the black sand. It's just nasty. I'm going to clean all of that out. Now this bottom aquarium, I cannot get it cleared up enough to see the fish in it. I found a dead catfish that was just floating. It was a nice looking 6-inch long channel catfish. But I've drained this down and refilled it twice already, and I'm draining it again right now. They said they thought there was still an eel in here. It's not an eel. it is a polypterus. If you're not familiar with that, they're sold with the listing dinosaur eel. Their common name is a bichir. And I'm a big fan of that fish. And there's a really big one in there, but there's no way I can possibly catch that fish while that water is black like that. So I'm going to keep working on cleaning that up. Then I spotted that this top rim has a crack in it, and you don't want this to break. If this breaks across here, then the tank won't hold water anymore. So before that happens, I'm going to get some 2-part epoxy put on here. This has under gravel filters, and I do not like under gravel filters. I've used them before, they're okay, but I don't want them. So I'm going to have to take out the under gravel filter. All of this dirt and sand is coming out. I'm going to paint the back, this side here, let it dry, turn the tank around, and glue up that crack. While I'm doing that, I'll be filling this and draining it until I can see in there well enough to find out if that's the only fish and getting caught and transferred out. So, a lot of work to do. My process for painting aquariums is pretty simple. I use this apple barrel matte paint. At Walmart, this is like $2 for a bottle, and one bottle will do an aquarium. Super cheap, little bitty roller. So on all of this, it's less than $10, and just roll it on. Works great. I love the look. I would not have thought I would like the blue on the aquariums, but I've got 3 of them, and I love the way they look. There's an example of the way the blue looks. Really makes everything stand out, especially when filming it. The nice thing about this paint is it scrapes off really easy. So if you change your mind and you don't like the color, you don't like having it painted, it'll come right off. Well, I mean, you use a razor blade, but it's easy to remove. So I've already cleaned this. I don't worry about if I get a little on the frame, because it comes off that too. You know, on the black. You could tape it off. I just choose not to. I did the first aquarium I painted, I taped off, and since then, I haven't been. It's never come back to be something I regretted. So now the top aquarium is completely emptied out and painted the first coat. The bottom aquarium is emptied out, but I still need to pull the sand and the dirt out of the bottom and that under gravel filter and clean the inside of it, rinse it out. Probably another half hour of messing with that. Then I'll have to look at which side of the aquarium is in the best shape. I don't want any more scratches on the front than necessary. But hey, I didn't show you the fish that I caught out of there. He's a monster. It's one of my favorite kinds of fish, and this is a big one. Now I've got to decide, do I want to put it back in here, or do I want to put it in the 220 gallon? This guy belongs in the 220 gallon, but I'm worried he might be a little too big and eat some of my fish. So the tanks are almost ready, but I've been trying to decide what to do with this guy. First, he's huge. I'm going to say he's 10 inches. And he belongs in the 220 gallon. But I'm worried that he might be big enough to eat some of these guys. I could leave him in that tote and then in the morning take him and see if I can trade him in at a fish store. Or I could put him back in one of those 55 gallons, but I really think that's a bad idea. They don't have full cover lids. There's big gaps. I'd have to seal it up. He's a jumper. I don't know how they had him in there before, if they kept the water level down or what. I think I'm just going to try him in here and see how he does. This is the right home for him. Cross our fingers and see what happens. So the rest of the fish in this aquarium are juveniles, and that is a full-grown fish. and I'm getting a look at him for the first time. I was really worried he was going to be injured or sick or have different problems. But that looks like a full-grown, healthy fish. He's going to be 10 inches long. I don't see any marks on him. Another really cool bonus of picking up this aquarium is it had this giant piece of driftwood right here that occupied the entire center of that aquarium. And I could have put it back in there, but I decided to put it in here. And I think it looks fantastic in the 220 gallon. A lot of people have been telling me I needed to make this a planted aquarium. The problem is the Severums and the Waru are big time plant eaters, and the Geophagus dig up plants. So doing a lot of plants in here probably won't work, and even the ones I have probably won't work long term. But I do like that pop of green for now. I picked these two aquariums up as an absolute disaster this morning. And they were filthy inside and out. The water was awful. There were 6 fish inside of them. I managed to save 5 of those 6 fish. So that was the best I could do. And I think they're a nice addition to the fish room. What I'd like from you guys is suggestions on what you think would be entertaining for these. This one, the lights have already shut down because they're on a timer and a daylight schedule. And so this one's already shut down. But this is a kind of a planted community tank, 125 gallon, with some ram cichlids, angelfish, discus, tetras. Pretty peaceful community tank, but it's still cichlids. It's also got corydoras and yo-yo loaches. The 220 gallon has the big aggressive or semi-aggressive cichlids with a bunch of polypterus. And then I've got my little tanks up here where I'm breeding microorganisms. I've got shrimp, microfauna. These are just snails. There's tons of snails in here, and then I've got guppies. Then I've got a couple more breeding tanks. But now I'm left with these two, and I've got to decide what to do with it. And what I'm leaning towards right now, I want to do something that is something I love, something I want to do, but also something you guys will find interesting and I can produce content about. I'm thinking about doing African cichlids in this top tank just because they're so beautiful. And it's been a long time since I did African cichlids. So I'm considering that for the top tank. For the bottom tank, I'm considering a fully planted jungle aquarium with some like microfish, maybe something that breeds live bears like swordtails or something. And just make this aquarium down here 100% focused on the plants. And if I do that, I will do the Wallstead method, which some of you know as the father fish method, but it's very similar, and Wallstead was doing it a long time before we had YouTube channels about fish keeping. So I'm considering jungle tank and African cichlids, but I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think, and I might take your advice. I thought about doing a giant puffer, let a puffer or a flower horn or something like that just dominate one of these aquariums. I'm always hesitant to dedicate a large, at least this size of aquarium, to a single fish, but I've also never kept a giant puffer, and I've never kept a flower horn. So just considering the possibilities, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.